Hi there, Jimmy Townsend here. Just wanted to talk about these Occupy movements for a moment. What people need to remember to get their freedom back is they need to revert back to a real money and barter system. You see, real money is gold, silver, and copper coins and bars, and those have intrinsic value. And you can trade them for other things of value, and that's called a barter exchange. So using real money is actually a barter exchange. Whenever you use a piece of paper, anything written on a piece of paper is an IOU. It's a debt instrument. And if you print debt instruments and you exchange them for goods, not only have you stolen the good, but you've left the person that you gave the debt instrument to with a debt. And in this manner, bankers have gone around the world and they have garnered all of the assets in the world and left the world strapped with astronomical debts. Well, the granddaddy of all of these banks is the Bank of International Settlements from Basel, Switzerland. Now, Basel, Switzerland is a neutral nation. Through two world wars, as Europe erupted around them, not a shot was fired in Switzerland, and that's because they were neutral. You see, that's where the bankers are, and nobody bombs their bankers. It's just not good business. And bankers finance both sides of the war, and whoever they like the best, they give enough finances to win, and they max a thing out and keep people in debt perpetually. Now, the Bank of International Settlements has an asset base of $175 trillion and is owed a global debt of $100 trillion. The Bank of International Settlements controls all of the central banks of the Commonwealth nations. Okay, so the Bank of England is controlled by the Bank of International Settlements. The Bank of England opened up the Federal Reserve and a Bank of Canada, which are also controlled by the Bank of International Settlements. If you don't believe me, go on to the Canada Justice Department website and look up the Bank of International Settlements Immunity Act. It is the shortest act in Canadian jurisprudence. It has two clauses. One, that they are not subject to our laws. So it is, in fact, the supreme law of Canada because it is totally above our laws. And number two, we cannot touch any of their property. You see, it's all theft by conversion, and once our property has been converted to theirs, we're not allowed to touch it to get it back. So we know who the culprits are. So as we occupy Wall Street in order to take over the Fed and occupy the Fed and occupy the Bank of Canada and occupy Vancouver and occupy Seattle and occupy all of these other places, remember that what you want to occupy is the people that are responsible for it at the top. And that would be the Bank of International Settlements from Basel, Switzerland. Now, you see, here's the thing. It really doesn't matter what you do if you do not affect realistic change. Okay, in 1867, a group of Bar Association lawyers came over to Canada, and they formed a corporation. They called it Canada, gave it the same name as our country. It's a corporation that's registered in the United States on the Securities Exchange and is a for-profit private corporation that went bankrupt in 1933. That is why Canada has a Receiver General, and you make out all your checks to the Receiver General because the corporation called Canada has been in receivership for an awful long time. And your trust that was created at the time of your birth has been pledged as surety for this bankruptcy. So that's the charade that we're caught in. You see, they started this corporation, called it Canada, and then they formed courts under the aegis of that de facto corporation. It's not a lawful de jure government. It's a de facto private corporation that has assumed power as our de facto government. And they have created their own courts, and they use the courts to legitimize their de facto government, and the de facto government to legitimize their de facto courts. And you and I are caught, and it really doesn't matter. If 3 people in Canada voted, they would go with the majority, and it really wouldn't matter what the other 33 million had to say at all. That's the way that it works in this country. So as we occupy the powers that be, make sure that you quit doing business with the banks if that's really what you want to do. As long as you're writing checks and using credit cards and using paper money, nothing's ever really going to change. You can try and change your governments, but as long as you don't have lawful, legitimate governments, then nothing's ever going to change. So as you occupy these things and protest for real change. Say, we want to form a lawful de jure government. We want to have lawful de jure courts. We, the people of Canada, the people of the state, want to write our own constitution. A constitution is the body of law written by the state to control the government. You see, the corporation in Canada has a constitution, and it's just a corporate constitution, and it only applies to the corporate employees, the public servants of Canada. If you don't believe me, go and read the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Read Section 32. It's called the Applications part of the Charter. And what it says is the Charter applies only to public servants. It does not apply to the private citizens of Canada. Do you see, in order, we are made subject to these laws. Yes, indeed, the police are subject to these laws because they are public servants. But whenever they try to enforce these laws on us, that's a crime called champerty. And whenever the Crown tells the cops that they're to enforce the laws against us, that's called barratry. You see, it's barratry when you enforce legislation against people that it doesn't pertain to. And it does not pertain to we, the private people. But what happens is they form a trust at the time of our birth, an express trust. And they claim that you, as being a beneficiary of that express trust, are in fact a member of the public when you're not. You're a private individual. So whenever the public claims that you're a public servant or a member of the public, and they try to impress public laws upon you, that's when you want to tell them, look, your laws don't apply to me. I have unlimited rights as a free Canadian citizen. What don't you understand about free? Not subject to the legal constraint of another. You know, there's one fundamental law in the universe, and that is do no harm. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but do no harm. You know, and all of us could live on this planet with that one simple rule if we simply follow it. You know, we don't ever fool anybody. You can't get away with anything because the effect of what you do has repercussions. You know, if you steal when nobody's around, you've harmed somebody, and somebody that's been harmed is now going to want to seek security and everything, and he's not going to want to help somebody out. You know, so by doing that, you can pretend to be a good person, but by stealing stuff when people are not around, I mean, it happens all the time out in the boondocks. We can't leave anything in a mining camp or anywhere, you know, without wondering if our stuff's even going to be there whenever we get back. You know, and that's the consequence of being on this currency little gerbil mill. You know, the government claims that you owe all these taxes, and they take this currency in payment for the taxes. So they force you to go out and chase their currency in the first place, right? You know, and the Crown does this by claim of right and under color of law. And I wish Canadians would just get a Black's Legal Dictionary, you know, law dictionary. I've got the 6th edition, and that's what I refer to. And look up a claim of right. It's a criminal claim. Look up color of law. It's a criminal process. You know, these are recognized crimes, and yet they're carried on daily in these banker courts that we have in Canada. So remember, as you're out there protesting, go out and occupy the BIS, because the BIS is right at the very top. These are the people that control our lives financially. They control the corporation that pretends to be our government, and they control all the corporations that pretend to be our courts. Break the link. Start feeding each other. Start sharing with each other. And remember that if you're using the money, yeah, we all need money. I need money. I need money to get gasoline and to get food if I can't meet people that will allow me to exchange labor for stuff out of their garden and stuff like that. You know, but it's doable if enough of us all do it together, right? We stand up and we protest, but then we ask the government for everything, and that system that can't persist like that. But the reason that we end up doing that is because we don't help each other out. They keep us divided. We get together and we go in marches on big protests, but how do we really support each other? When the protest is over, what is life anyways? Well, life is the path you follow between those celebrations, those high points that you remember. The points between the weddings, the points between the funerals. That's life. What are you doing every day? Are you living the change that you want to see in the world? And I know it's hard. Fuck, I've been turning the other cheek for a long time, and they just keep on shooting at me now. Slapping me. That's when they charge you with uttering threats after trying to murder you in the middle of the night. We know that there's no justice in Canada. There's no equality before the law. That's a ridiculous concept. I can't even take paperwork into the courts in Vernon. They won't even accept my witnesses. They have witnesses on the indictment that have made these allegations, and I can't even call them. One's a cop that we charged with dereliction of duty 15 years ago, and he's been in the background the whole time, just stabbing us in the back every opportunity that he gets. Balance of probabilities. Balance of probabilities. Anybody familiar with that term? Now, what's the chances that I would exercise the due diligence of a reasonable man and not just go off the deep end when somebody fired bullets through my home? See that bullet hole in the drawer there? Look at the bullet hole going out the back. Now, I know that certain people were involved in it because of the events that occurred immediately thereafter. So I wrote to the Ombudsman. That's the official channel that they give you for complaining to the government. And I complained about the disability officer working with the RCMP and my belief that they'd tried to murder us and the odd circumstances surrounding all of this. And I got charged with uttering threats for writing a letter to the Ombudsman. I got charged by the people that I complained about. Isn't that amazing? When you have a government that gives you a venue for complaining to them, and you use that official venue to make a complaint, and the people that you complain about who have tried to murder you charge you with uttering threats. The fellow that we believe tried to murder us actually announced in the paper that I was wanted for uttering death threats after attempting to murder us. And the RCMP covered it up. And what I said was this fellow's informant was the one that tried to murder us. And in their cover-up they say, oh, Henry Posey wasn't even in the province at the time, so he couldn't have been involved. Well, fuck. If I were a cop and I had an informant that was going to try to murder somebody, I think I'd be intelligent enough to be out of the province too. But does that prove anything? Henry Posey has laughed about it. Has he mocked us, Judith? In our own yard? Come up and mocked us?
Yes, he has.
Oh, yeah. So we know. But there is no equality before the law. I wrote 2 books about the corruption of the government and courts in Canada. And that's my crime for speaking up for Canada. It's called freedom of speech. They hang you for it here. I wonder if they hang you for it in Switzerland. Switzerland, eh? That great neutral nation. Geez, I wonder if I could seek political asylum in Switzerland, in Basel, Switzerland. What do you think? Think they let me pitch a tent right outside the Bank of International Settlements? Oh, look after me, big banker guy. Pigs may fly. Speaking of pigs may fly, the black helicopters are back again. Straight over that way. Straight over that way. Wonder what they're after. I'm going to put a landing pad on the top of the motorhome again. Anyways, Bank of International Settlements. Repeat after me, zombies. Occupy Bank of International Settlements. Burn paper money. Burn paper currency. Burn paper currency. If you don't want to deal with bankers, burn their dead instruments. Burn their dead instruments. And remember, churches are banks. So if you're going to a church, you're going to a banker for spiritual enlightenment. You might want to think about that. Grab yourself a whip there. Peace, baby. Occupy the abyss. Occupy the abyss.